In the millions of years of human evolution, perhaps no invention has shaped the fate of humanity as profoundly as fire. Before agriculture, before writing, even before modern humans, fire was central to survival, culture, and progress. It provided warmth, protection, food, tools, intelligence, and civilization. But what if a link in the evolutionary chain was missing? What if our ancestors had never discovered how to control fire? If fire had never entered human life, the entire course of history would have taken a different turn or perhaps not progressed at all. This article explores that hypothesis. What if humans never discovered fire? Not just as a curious question, but as a lens into the nature of human progress. Fire is more than just a physical tool. It is the first intellectual tool. The use and maintenance of fire requires planning, social cooperation, and the transmission of information across generations. These behaviors are the seeds of language, collective memory, and abstract thought, the building blocks of civilization. Anthropologists believe that Homo erectus learned to use fire more than 1.5 million years ago. This not only helped them survive harsh winters, but also opened up a new ability, cooking. This is when fire went beyond being a tool, it became a transformative technology. According to the cooking drives brain evolution hypothesis, fire not only helps digest food better, but also frees up energy for brain development. When food is cooked, the digestive system requires less energy, allowing the body to invest more in the brain, an organ that consumes up to 20% of daily energy. Without fire, humans might never have evolved into Homo sapiens. Bigger brains mean better problem solving, deeper language thinking, and greater creativity, all of which depend on one simple fact: a hot meal. Since the Stone Age, fire has been central to social life. Primitive tribes gathered around fires to share stories, sing songs, and plan hunts. The space around the fire is where humans first formed the concept of community, of collective memory. Fire is also powerfully symbolic. In Greek mythology, Prometheus stole fire from the gods to give to mankind, an act that challenged the divine order, brought knowledge, but also ushered in suffering. In most cultures, fire is a symbol of enlightenment, passion, and destruction. Without fire, there would be no metallurgy. Without metallurgy, there would be no metal tools, no efficient weapons, no efficient wheels, no precision mechanics. Fire is what propelled humanity into the Bronze Age, the Iron Age, and eventually the Industrial Revolution. Fossil fuels, the internal combustion engine, electricity, all modern energy sources stem from humans understanding and harnessing heat. Without fire, humans would never have discovered thermodynamics, one of the four pillars of modern physics. By imagining a world without fire, we don't just lose one element of survival, we erase the entire map of human evolution. A world where darkness is the rule, where raw food is a necessity, where metal never glows red, and where civilization might stop at the hunter-gatherer level forever. In the following sections, we'll delve deeper into each of these aspects, from biological evolution to technology, from society to religion, to explore whether, and if so, how, humans could survive in a world without fire. Chapter 2: Biological Evolution in a Fireless World. Modern humans, Homo sapiens, are the product of millions of years of evolution. However, not all of the change came from nature. A significant part of our development was driven by the first technological culture, fire. Without fire, our biological evolution would have taken a completely different path, slower, less complex, and probably never led to the emergence of humans as we know them today. The raw body, a different version of humans. Imagine a human species that never learned to cook. To survive, they would have had to develop adaptations to raw food. Larger jaws and teeth. Like chimpanzees or gorillas, the jaws needed to be strong enough to chew roots, tubers, tough raw meat and tendons. Longer intestines, larger stomachs, The digestive system would have needed more time and energy to process raw food, which is rich in cellulose and bacteria. More hairy bodies, without fire to keep us warm. Our ancestors would have needed thick ape-like fur to withstand the cold. This would have made us less human and more ape-like. Thus, the split between humans and other primates probably would not have occurred, or if it did, it would have been slow and without the necessary evolutionary leaps. The brain-energy trade-off. The human brain is a tremendous energy-consuming machine. It makes up 2% of our body weight, but consumes 20 to 25% of our total energy. Fire allows us to cook food, releasing more calories from the same amount of food. That means more energy for brain development, shorter chewing and digestion times, saving time, more nutritional diversity, thanks to the ability to consume foods that cannot be eaten raw. Without fire, the body must prioritize digestion over the brain. This leads to a paradox. A smaller, less complex brain means lower intelligence. The ability to form language, abstract thinking, and social learning would also decline significantly. The price of cold. Without fire, our ancestors would have had a hard time leaving the tropical regions of Africa, where the climate was temperate year-round. In fact, it was fire that enabled Homo erectus and Homo sapiens to survive in cold regions like Europe and Central Asia. In a world without fire, humans would probably never have settled in winter regions, never have evolved the ability to migrate long distances, slowing their global spread, never have invented thick clothing and durable housing, because there was no way to process animal skins, materials, or building designs. As a result, humans would likely have remained an endemic species in Africa, never becoming the global species we are today. Natural selection goes different. Fire provided protection from predators, processed toxins in food, and provided light at night, factors that helped reduce mortality. Without fire, natural selection would have been more intense. Only the most robust, well-adapted, and resilient individuals would have survived. This could have resulted in a society that was intellectually slow, but physically strong, socially simple, focused on survival other than innovation, less likely to transmit knowledge, since darkness prevented gatherings to tell stories, learning from generation to generation. Another species, another fate. Without fire, Homo sapiens might never have become dominant. It is possible that another species, perhaps a more primitive but cold-resistant form of Neanderthal, would have taken over biologically. Or humans might have lived forever in small, scattered communities, incapable of creating large-scale civilization. Fire was more than just a survival tool. It was a biological catalyst for humanity. The control of fire was a turning point in evolution. It shaped not only our bodies and minds, but the direction of our entire species. In the next section, we will analyze another essential consequence, a world of food and food safety without fire. When food is forever raw, what do humans eat? How do they live, and can they avoid disease? Chapter 3: Food and Nutrition Without Fire. In the real world, cooking is a universal human behavior. From ancient stews to modern molecular gastronomy, fire is the foundation of all forms of food processing. But in a world without fire, every meal is raw. This is not just a change in taste, but a revolution in the entire human nutritional and survival system. The raw body, a continuous challenge. Modern humans are not able to digest raw food as efficiently as other carnivores or primates. There is no thermal process to break down proteins, starches and fibers. Raw proteins are difficult to digest, easily cause allergies and nitrogen imbalance. Raw starches from tubers and seeds cannot be absorbed because they do not have strong enough enzymes. The crude fiber in raw vegetables damages the intestines if eaten in large quantities. Therefore, the human body in a world without fire had to evolve into directions, either develop a stronger digestive system or reduce dependence on complex food groups such as tubers, seeds, and red meat. Risk of bacteria and parasites. One of the profound reasons why fire became a survival step was its ability to destroy pathogens in food. Without fire, humans consume raw meat with the risk of infection with Salmonella, E. coli, Listeria, eat raw fish, face parasites such as tapeworms, liver flukes, eat dirty vegetables, leading to intestinal worms and chronic diarrhea. The mortality rate in young children and the elderly would be very high. Therefore, the surviving groups will have to develop superior resistance or find alternative methods such as natural fermentation, a form of preservation and predigestion with beneficial bacteria, using antiseptic herbs, a pharmaceutical alternative to heat. The backwardness of cuisine and life. Cuisine is not just a way of eating, but a way of living. There are no cooked aromas to stimulate the taste buds and emotions. There are no family meals around the fire. There is no appearance of culinary culture, one of the foundations of building community identity. Instead, meals become purely survival acts, individualized, lacking ritual and sharing. This indirectly affects the ability to bond socially, a key factor in cultural evolution. Nutrition and social division. Without cooking, access to high-quality food becomes highly unequal. Those who live near easily digestible sources of food, such as fruit, snails, and fish, are healthier. Communities that have to eat raw meat or fibrous roots are malnourished. Societies may form biological classes, where those who are healthier due to nutrition become the default leaders. This raises the question: can humans develop a moral or philosophical system of justice in a world where food is a matter of fate? Loss of nutritional intelligence. Without cooking, we lose an extremely important aspect of human knowledge, culinary knowledge. There is no concept of food, spices, and processing techniques. There is no tradition of passing down recipes, the art of cooking. There is no science of nutrition, the core element of modern medicine and healthcare. Humans would be physically healthy if they had evolved properly, but spiritually poor, lacking the expressions of creativity, experimentation, and culture that are built up in the kitchen. Food is not just a biological matter. It is a bridge between instinct and intellect, between the individual and the community. Without fire, meals lose their artistic quality, society loses its focal point, and the body loses its source of refined energy. The consequences are not just in the stomach, they are in the entire structure of human culture and society. In the next chapter, we will ask, if there was no fire, how would humans have invented tools? What alternative technologies existed? Chapter 4: Tools, Technology, and Alternative Energy. No metallurgy, no Bronze or Iron Age. In human history, technological development is closely linked to the exploitation and processing of materials using heat. Without fire, the entire process is stopped. No fire, so no metallurgy. No metallurgy, so no tools made of bronze, iron, or steel. No metal tools, so weapons, agricultural tools, and architecture are all limited to stone, wood, bone. This means that humanity in a world without fire could forever stop in the Neolithic period, or develop in a completely different direction, organic technology instead of thermomechanical. Without metallurgy and thermochemistry, humans could develop technology in the following directions: early biotechnology, cultivating fungi, creating plant fibers to make ropes, fabrics, or even enhancing useful organisms. Living tools, using climbing plants, hard fruit shells, large insect carcasses, or turtle shells to make tools. Regenerating architecture, houses made from living trees bent into molds, or using symbiotic organisms to retain heat and clean the air. This leads to a completely ecological, non-mechanized technology, which may be similar to the imaginary civilizations in works such as Avatar or Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind. Without fire, how can there be energy? Fire is the first basis for controllable energy. In a world without fire, humans still need energy, but must find other solutions. Biomechanics, using human and animal bodies to operate simple machines, pulleys, wheels, levers. Water and wind energy, windmills, water turbines can be invented independently. Solar energy, using mirrors, lenses, or reflective materials to take advantage of natural light. Although limited, because there is no glass and ceramic. Energy from bioluminescent organisms, using marine organisms or microorganisms to create biological light, lighting at night. However, most of these solutions have much lower efficiency than burning fuel, so large structures and heavy machinery will be difficult to form. Without metallurgy, there would be no mechanization. Without mechanization, there would be no industrialization. And without industrialization, humans would never have built great cities. In a world without fire, there would be no steam engines, internal combustion engines, or mass production factories. Transportation would still be on foot, on horseback, or by raft. Everything would be manual, slow, and local. This would not necessarily be a negative. It would create a more sustainable, less polluted, and more natural society. But it would mean an extremely slow pace of scientific and technological development. Without fire, science also loses an important part. Chemical substances cannot be heated, so chemical research is limited. No thermodynamic experiments, then physics loses the branch of dynamics. Electricity cannot be discovered by heating. Thus electricity and magnetism develop late or never form. Science can instead focus on astronomy and early mathematics, based on the movement of stars. Biology, ecology, because life depends much more on the environment. Sound and spatial geometry, if society develops technology based on sound instead of light. Intellectual technology without fire. There is an intriguing possibility. If humans could not evolve physical technology, they could compensate with spiritual technology. Extensive memory, developing a highly complex oral system like the Vedas or Norse sagas. Symbols, myths, and languages rich in meaning, instead of written technology. A semi-metaphysical society, where knowledge is preserved through ritual, religious structures, or even encoded in body art forms like tattoos, dance, or signs. This would be a form of cultural technology, non-mechanical, but with great symbolic power and social control. Without fire, humans would never have entered the mechanical age, but they could have developed an alternative technology, a biological, ecological, and symbolic, sufficient to sustain life, communicate, and develop the spirit. It was a slower, gentler, and perhaps deeper civilization. Chapter 5: Culture, Society, and Religion in a World Without Fire. Fire, the source of community. In fact, since ancient times, the fire has been the gathering place of the tribe. When night falls, the fire not only provides light, but also brings people together. They tell stories, teach, sing, and discuss hunting plans. Without fire, the community center disappears. This leads to a completely different social form. Night is a passive, quiet time. Transgenerational transmission is limited due to the lack of common living space. Community awareness is weaker, more fragile, and less able to develop complex social structures. Communication, when language has no room to develop. Language is more than just speech. It needs context, time, and repetition to learn and develop. Without night light, children have little exposure to adult conversation. Storytelling, lullabies, and legends are severely limited. Consequences: language may develop more slowly, becoming more operative and semiotic than abstract. Non-sound forms of language such as signs, dances, and body symbols may develop more strongly than speech. Literature and poetry, the highest expressions of linguistic thought, may never emerge, or may survive in a ritualized form. Beliefs: when darkness is divine, in most real cultures, fire is a symbol of divine Prometheus, Ugni, the Norse god of fire. Enlightenment Buddha under the fire of wisdom, the light of knowledge. Procreation bonfire, the fire of love. But in a world without fire, darkness becomes the default, gives a symbol of sacredness, inclusiveness, and eternity. Light, from the stars, from bioluminescent creatures, becomes a rare and divine phenomenon, not a common thing. Rituals, religions, beliefs can focus on listening, feeling, and closing your eyes instead of seeing. The result is a quiet, introspective ideology, tied to natural breathing and biological cycles, not the burning revealing religion of Judaism, Christianity, or Zoroastrianism. Symbols and non-visual arts: no fire, thus no night light, no cave painting, no night sculpture. But that does not mean there is no art. Instead, art can evolve in the following directions: sound, epics, percussion instruments, ancestral songs. Day carving, wood, stone, bone sculpture, done outdoors. The human body as an easel, tattooing, body carving, vegetable dyeing. Kinetic symbols, dance, movement patterns, even walking rituals. This art system is rich in rhythm and feeling, does not need light to inspire, but uses the body as a tool for creation and communication. Belief in sacred light: because light becomes rare and uncontrollable, it can be given religious or metaphysical meanings. Bright creatures are worshipped as gods or sacred objects. Nighttime lights, full moon, aurora borealis, lightning are seen as messages from the other world. Those who can create light lenses, reflections, biology will become shamans, spiritual leaders. This belief may lead to a society with a high spiritual class, where knowledge and light are religious privileges, similar to the role of the ancient Egyptian priest. Without fire, human culture does not die out, but it goes in a completely different direction. Less written language, thus more expressive symbols. Less visual arts, thus more sound and body arts. Less large-scale government gives more spiritual and tribal communities. This is a quiet society, more perceptive than rational, living in harmony with the dark, and creative in the way of creatures who do not need lights to dream. Chapter 6: Economy, Agriculture, and Community Organization. Economy in a world without fire. In real history, human economies developed when they were able to accumulate and exchange value. Fire played a central role in many stages of this process, from cooking food for preservation, to crafting tools, to creating centralized forms of production such as forges, pottery kilns, and later factories. In a world without fire, the economy would not develop in the direction of large-scale industrial production or agriculture. Instead, local economies, based on seasonal exploitation of natural resources, would dominate. This is a decentralized economic model, highly ecological but limited in output, an accumulation of assets. Agriculture without slash and burn, no metallurgy. One of the great shifts of mankind was from hunting and gathering to agriculture. However, this process was closely linked to the use of fire to burn forests to make fields, to make metal tools such as plows, sickles, and knives. In a world without fire, this transition was delayed or completely distorted. Without fire to make tools or clear land, agriculture, if it existed, would be manual and small scale. People could use pointed sticks, whetstones, or dig by hand, and had to grow in areas with available loose soil such as riverbanks, mudflats, or old grasslands. Farming methods depended entirely on perseverance and the natural cycles of the soil. Food preservation techniques were also limited. Without heat drying or smoking, people had to rely on silage, natural salting, or burying food in cold soil to preserve food. These techniques survived, but required a high level of biological knowledge and were difficult to popularize on a large scale. Society based on biological resources, when production and accumulation of material are limited, power in society may not come from wealth, but from the ability to coordinate living resources. People who are able to guide to good land, find wild plants that can be eaten raw, recognize natural signs of harvest, will become respected in the community. The greatest asset is survival knowledge, not material that can be stored. As a result, communities can build an organizational model of ecological chief or guide shaman, in which the leader does not hold power by force or property, but by understanding the living environment. Trade and distribution, without fire, steel-wheeled vehicles, or engines, long-distance trade was extremely slow and difficult. All transportation had to rely on human or animal power, via natural routes, such as rivers, animal trails, or forest edges. Since regular exchange was difficult, each community could develop a self-sufficient system, relying on the resources available within a short radius. Special products, such as large clamshells, rare gems, or medicinal plants could become units of exchange similar to primitive currency, but there was no complex financial system. The distribution of resources within the community could be based on age, position in the family, or collective convention. There were no warehouses, no drying ovens, or cold rooms, so the hands-on nature of the economy was very evident. Community structure and social organization. When the economy does not produce a large surplus, societies are often not deeply hierarchical. Communities may remain flat, with roles based on age, experience, or access to knowledge, rather than ownership of land or food stores. However, in conditions of resource scarcity or fierce competition for survival, some communities may form power structures centered around people who can coordinate, explore, or protect, such as a chief hunter, a skilled forester, or a shaman with knowledge of bioluminescent organisms. If there is a system of rules, they are not written down, but rather exist in the form of oral traditions, rituals, songs, and gestures. The enforcement and protection of rules are more closely tied to social prestige and kinship or works than to the power of arms. Communities tied to nature. Without fire, humans could not control nature with technology, so the relationship between humans and nature in this society is clearly symbiotic. Instead of conquering, humans negotiate with the living environment. Living off nature led communities to develop many rituals to honor forests, rivers, animals, and weather. Animistic belief systems may have emerged, in which every living thing has its own spirit, from rocks, trees, to wind and water. This is a form of belief similar to that of Native American, Siberian, or Polynesian tribes. Without fire, humans could not build an industrial economy, develop high-yield agriculture, and establish a surplus accumulating society. However, they could survive using the ecological community model, where value lies in living knowledge, adaptation, and symbiotic relationship with nature. The final chapter brings us to the conclusion, a reflection on the future, on humanity, and on the lessons that the world without fire hypothesis holds for the present. Chapter 7. Conclusion. From the moment our ancestors learned to keep fire, human history changed forever. Fire is what marks the boundary between instinct and civilization, between the darkness of instinct and the light of thought. But if that fire had never existed, could humans have developed in a different way? In this imaginary journey, we have seen a world where fire never burned. A world without metallurgy, without cooking, without nightlight, but also rich in feeling, deep in nature, and more attached to the rhythm of life of the earth and sky. A civilization that does not possess, exists without destroying, is silent but profound. From this assumption, the most important thing is perhaps not the answer, but the question: do we, with fire in our hands, really use it properly?
Thank you for sticking with this article until the end. This is an imaginative journey with great potential to illuminate the present. Hopefully, it will give you a new perspective not only on evolutionary history, but also on the choices of living in the modern world. If you find this content useful, please like, share, and subscribe to fuel similar stories. Each of your followings is a small light helping me continue to write, create, and explore more imaginary worlds. See you in the next fantasy universes.